reputable. Okay. So you need to go to a reputable agency in order to make sure that you don't get some wrong advice. Okay. In many places, we have our some Zoroastrians, Parsis or Irani Zoroastrians, also practicing real estate. So it might be a good idea to, find out from your local association directory who are people doing that and try to use their services. The other thing that just for your information, you need to know is that there are some people called appraisers, who are basically used by the mortgage companies, to get a rough value of, how much the house is worth, so that when they are making a loan, they know that, they are making a loan for a property that will not go down in value or something like that. And there are, and then of course, these real estate agents, they usually also check the credit, and your background and all that kind of thing. Usually more for the people who are selling, or actually also for buyers, And there are different kinds of government organizations that also help especially the first-time home buyer. Okay, so you have the federal home FHA, Federal Home Loan Association, that guarantees a loan that otherwise you may not be able to get directly. Also, there is a veterans organizations, the VA, that will help to guarantee for people to buy a house for people who have served in the military as veterans. Okay.
Hey, Monica Uncle?
Yeah.
So I was just accessed as a host. Can you guys see my screen now?
No, not yet. I don't see it. It's usually some kind of a screen share,
Yeah, it's showing as me sharing my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Can anyone confirm that you guys can see my screen with the PowerPoint?
As soon as we see it, we will raise our thumb.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, guys.
Fred, you can send me and see if I can do it.
Okay, let me send that to you right now, Rustam, Uncle.
I can host you.
So our plan was for after every slide, that we would have a pause for questions. But since we don't have a slide, I was kind of running along.
Yeah, Monica Uncle, why don't we open this part to Q&A, and then at that time, that way in the interim, Monica Uncle, Rustam Uncle and I can figure this out. And
Okay.
He can possibly share.
Okay, so are there any questions or comments?
I don't have a question, but I have that situation where my brother has moved from the southern tip of Illinois to Dallas. He got a new job, which we're all very happy about. And he had a beautiful, beautiful home in southern Illinois. He had helped build the home. It has a large property. It sits at the top of a hill, and it looks down on a beautiful pond. And in Dallas, he has a small, tiny apartment, and he's got all of his electronics crammed into there. You can't move in there. You can't walk or anything. So he has to figure out how to get rid of his old house and get something new in Dallas. And he's contending with that. So it's a very real issue. It's a very real thing for some people on here. He did rent it out for about, I think, 1.5 years to one family. And they did a lot of destructive things. They didn't keep it in good shape. So he had to go back. He's fixed it. He's gotten it into nice shape, but it takes a lot to keep it in order.
Right. That's true. And that's why it is very important when you rent a house or apartment, whatever you have, is to make sure that you are having a real estate person, do the credit checking, background checking, because they will check your references, from the applicant as to whether they have had any problems, in the past, or whether they have had job problems or things like that. So that is very important. So a lot of times people will, skip that and in a hurry to rent it out, or maybe they rent it to someone who refers them, as a friend or a relative or something like that. And maybe the person who is referring you is a very impeccable, person that you have known, but you may not know the person that they are referring, even if that is their brother or sister or what have you. And so it's very important to make sure you you screen all the applicants with a particular, real estate broker, real estate salesman, to make sure that that person is not going to cause you a lot of problems, But in spite of that, sometimes you may have problems, like, for example, a person will lose his job, and he is unable to make payments, right? And many people will, will honorably move out of it, or, make some arrangements. But sometimes you will run into people who will declare bankruptcy, and then they will continue to live in the house, okay? And so then that's why, again, you need to have a good experienced property manager, that is preferable, who knows how to deal with those kind of people, rather than you trying to deal with them, because that involves, either they will give some incentive to the person that say, okay, look, I'll forgive your 1 month rent or something like that, or and please move out, otherwise you run into cost of, having a court case and a lawyer and all those kind of things. So these are some of the dangers that you have to deal with. Okay, now we have the slides.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
But yeah, that was a good question, Natalie.
And Monica, I actually have a question also. So
Sure, go ahead.
in our dry run, you mentioned that, during a recession or during tough times in the economy, a lot of times the bank will have a list of foreclosed homes
Right.
that might be good buying opportunities.
Right.
Can you kind of go
Right.
through?
So,
can you kind
yeah,
of go through the process with that?
What happens is, that this happened in past recessions, where people who were not able to make their mortgage payments, and many people who were with the banks, then they would just leave the key in the mailbox and just leave, and so the banks ended up holding a large portfolio of such properties, that they really wanted to unload, fast. So that was a good opportunity for people to buy at a better price. I myself, helped one of our Parsi friends, in our Southern California area, to buy one such property from the bank, So that is something that you can always look out for, because banks don't want to have the burden of, making sure the house is kept up properly, because when you have properties, several properties, you don't have the resources to have someone look after the property, because those properties can be encroached upon by people who might just kind of occupy, they see, okay, there is an empty house, and they will just occupy it, And this happened even more recently in Las Vegas, for example. I just heard that from the news, So that is something that definitely you have to be aware of, and make sure that, but for a buying opportunity, that is also a good one, right?
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Monica.
Any other questions? Go ahead. All right, so if no questions, proceed to the next slide. Yeah, there we are. So I earlier mentioned about something about the, how you can maintain the property, and how you manage the property. One thing is you can do it yourself, by paying attention to what needs to be done, and regularly taking care of it. Otherwise, eventually these problems with the property will add up, and that can be a much bigger expense for you, So things like, termite inspection, occasionally that's a good idea. Otherwise, your house can be, eaten up by these termites. And that can be a big expense, because not only then you will have to do the termite treatment and fumigation, but you will also end up, paying a lot of money for repairing the wood that was destroyed. Okay. So, and then of course, you can either do it if you are not experienced. I think the first thing might be good idea to have a property management company, especially if you are moving out of the area. If you are like, if you move from Southern California to Northern California, like we did, or, some other state or what have you, then if you don't sell the property, you want to rent it, then you should definitely have a property management company that will look after it, right? Besides the other advantage I mentioned about what to do when some tenant, has a problem. Okay. And the other thing is that, if you are doing it yourself, what you can do is have an insurance policy with a home warranty company. And so what the home warranty company does, that whenever you have a problem, like, there's a plumbing problem, a toilet doesn't flush, or what have you, or electrical problem, then they have their list of technicians, and contractors who will send their technician to that particular property, and they will diagnose the problem, and they will report back to the insurance company, the home warranty company, and they will see if that particular item is covered by your insurance policy. If so, then they will basically tell the technician to go ahead and make the repairs. Or sometimes they will, if it is a very old item, old appliance or what have you, and it cannot be, they don't have repair parts for that, then they will offer you a cash out situation. So they will pay you cash for buying a new property, new appliance or what have you. Okay, but the home warranty companies, you have to pay a certain contract. You can either do it for one shot for the whole year, or you can do it in an installment type systems. And again, these are things that some depends on the home warranty companies. Some of them are better than others, as far as responding in time. Okay, sometimes there is a situation where there is a emergency. There is a water leaking out, and that could damage your property. And if the home warranty company does not send someone right away to fix it, then that can be a problem for you. So some of the home warranty companies will actually offer a clause where in case of emergency, you tell them that this is an emergency, and then you get authorization to get it fixed by a private plumber or private company that does the repairs. And so, that way you have to make sure that you are covered and not run into problem. Again, a lot of if you have a property manager, the property management companies are not very usually favorable about these home warranty companies, because a lot of times they will have to be on the phone on hold for a long time before those guys, talk to them and all that kind of thing. But those are the pros and cons, of having a home warranty company. Okay, so we can go to the next slide then. Yeah, first of all, are there any questions in this area?
So, Monica, one of the questions that came up is, what if you have a difficult tenant, someone who isn't paying on time, or someone who isn't paying at all, or you feel like they might be damaging the property? How do you usually deal with those types of tenants? Is it difficult, to have them move, or how would you approach challenging tenants like that?
Yeah, that's why I would advise, that if first of all, the important thing was to prevention is better than cure, right? So you should have the applicant for buying or renting your property, very thoroughly screened, to see what has been his background, because otherwise that can reveal background check as to whether he has had problems in the past, with other property owners and all that. But if in spite of that, if something happens, maybe that tenant, adds someone in his family who start living there, that then you will need to consult a lawyer, who deals with such situations about, maybe you need to evict the tenant. If in spite of your personal communication, the tenant does not make the necessary improvement, then, that you may have to say that, then I may have to, you may have to leave the property, because there are certain conditions under which you lease the property, that the tenant is supposed to, live in a certain way that will not damage your property. And that's why the property management company, that if you hire that, they would be a better idea, because they are experienced how to deal with it. They can, tell the tenant and give them a legal notice, that if you don't fix this problem and prevent this from happening again, then we may have to terminate your lease. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that, Manakukal.
Yeah.
And
Manik, I have a question. How much do these property management companies charge? I thought it was like 10 to 15% of the rent, and then will that not eat into the profitability of the whole venture?
Well, what my experience has been, it's like it can be, and it doesn't have to be a very high amount. And again, different property management companies, they will have a different percentage. Some charge, at least this is from what I know in California, some of them charge 8% of the monthly rent. Usually that seems to be what I've learned about recently. And there are some companies will charge you 10%, So yes, of course, this is a certain amount. And again, the home warranty company, you will have to pay them something in order to provide their home services, when you are not able to do it yourself, especially if you are living in an area far from your rental property, then, you may not know who to contact right away to send for repairing and things like that. So their home warranty is important, So yeah, these are expenses that will be part of your budget, calculations as to, okay, will I be able to afford all these expenses, Does that answer your question?
Yes. I wondered if the rent usually covers all these expenses.
Well, that's what you have to figure out, yeah, it can, it can, because especially, nowadays rents have also been rising in the very recent situation. Rents have been rising, property values have been rising, especially in the urban areas, of the big cities and all that. But those are the things you have to keep in mind, before you actually venture into buying and renting.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other question? Yeah, here's a good chart that Faridun had prepared, showing the appreciation of properties, in the long term. Okay. And, that brings up another thought that, what you have to do is not just think about making money from the rents, because again, with all these maintenance and other expenses, you may not be able to get rich quick, as some people might want to do, but you have to look at the appreciation of the property, over time. And so when you need money or whatever reason you're retiring and you don't need to do this headache of managing properties and all that, then you may want to sell the property. And so this is something that will be a good thing, that at the time when you are selling the property, you will be able to get a nice profit from your investment. Okay. And then when you, I guess, your property is, suppose a family, your wife or husband, they pass away, then the cost basis for the property when you sell it, also apparently changes, and you will be have less or no capital gains tax involved, something like that. But these are again laws and rules that change with time, So you have to think about all those things, Just like you have to do your own research, about, okay, what are the good locations, what are some areas where there is a lot of crime, and that can be obtained from police records, etc. And what are the areas which are decent areas that are known to have good appreciation over time.
So, Manik Uncle, in
Yeah.
your experience, do you think most of the profitability comes from appreciation of the housing, or does it come from primarily from rental income? And a second question is, we see this chart where there's substantial gains. Do you feel that the gains can sustain itself in the California market and it'll just keep on continuing on the same trajectory?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I would, this is just as a buyer or a renter, these are things that you have to think about. Okay, what is your objective? Do you want to get rich quick from the rental of the property? Or do you think that the property will appreciate substantially within a short period? Or do you want to depend on the long-term benefits, of the hedge against inflation? Because as you know, inflation can eat away at your assets and financial resources. So what you have to do is then always, like, you show that there is a dip in the value of the house in certain time, and this happens, right? Boom and bust, those cycles are happening. But so that's where that brings up the another important thing to talk about is that you must have some substantial amount of liquid savings, or you have to have a partner, your wife, that is, or a husband, that is also having a regular income, a regular job, so that you don't depend on one person's job for paying the mortgage payments, etc. Otherwise you will end up, having to sell in an emergency, because you can't make the mortgage payments. Then you'll have to sell at a much lower price, type of thing. So these are things that you have to keep in mind. And I always say that always have a good amount of liquid savings for emergencies. Sometimes it can be a medical emergency, and you run into a big expense, especially depending on your medical insurance and all that.
Perfect. Thank you, Manik Uncle.
You're welcome. All right. So then we just open it up for any general questions, any concerns people may have.
So one question that comes up a lot, Manik Uncle, is what
Sure.
is the biggest challenges in home ownership and renting out your properties?
Well, the challenge is that you have to allocate certain amount of time to management of the property, whether it is if you are managing the property yourself, or you have for your home, of course, usually you are the one, and that is a relatively easier thing, that you are living in the home, what are the problems happening in the home, and you take care of them, because you don't want to live in a house where things are going bad. So but if it's a rental property, then if you are not able to visit the property periodically and take a look, is how the tenant is maintaining the property, then things may go bad. For example, if you have you don't want to in your rental agreement, you say we don't allow any pets, a dog or a cat or what have you, then if you don't keep a visit to the house or even look at it, from outside occasionally, then you may not know that the tenant has secretly got a dog or a cat, And so, usually if you have allowance for a dog or a pet in your rental agreement, then there will also be some kind of a security deposit, that you will get from the tenant for the damage that the dog or cat may do. It may not be it may not cover everything, but at least it will give you some kind of, thing. So that's one thing that you have to. And the other thing, of course, is that, to make sure with the credit check and background check that the tenant is in a relatively stable financial situation. And, of course, the other thing is obviously, as we said before, the market upturns and downturns.
Mr. Bhojwala, one question, Rustam
Yes.
here. In the typical rental agreement, do you have access to the property from inside, like you said, periodic inspection?
Yes. Yes,
Is it normal to have that type of clause that you can come in and inspect?
There is some wording which says that, you give the tenant a certain advance notice that you are planning to come to take a look at, the property. And then, the tenant is obligated to allow you to come in and visit and, take a look inside. And, tell the tenant if there is something that is not being maintained properly, some damage happening, then you have to tell the tenant that, he needs to take care of it, either by calling his own private person, if it is being caused by him or her, but there is a clause like that. It does allow you to visit the property and inspect the property. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
Generally speaking, does it make sense to make improvements to a property that you've purchased, such as renovations to a kitchen, knocking down walls to have more open space? Is that typically, are those improvements recoupable when you sell the home, or is it kind of more really, something for your own benefit while you're living in the home?
Well, if it is a home that you are living in, that is kind of recoupable in a certain way that, if you have done those kind of renovations, you will get a higher price when you try to sell the home. Okay. Because, it will attract purchasers to buy your home because it looks in a very, up-to-date condition compared to other properties they have seen. If it is a rental property, again, that will figure in when you sell the home as far as improvements, for repairs and those kind of maintenance, you can deduct that in your income tax forms, But for improvements, that you make, then those can be recoverable in the terms of, when you sell the property and, when you sell it to another person, etc. So those are how they can benefit you. But, you have to, again, consider how much of renovation is going to make how much higher price, give you a higher price, right? Then these are some standard tables that are available from real estate people, They will say, well, kitchen remodeling usually gets a higher benefit, some kind of improvements to the outside appearance of your house, will get you a better benefit, in terms of quick sell and a higher price.
I have a question, Manik.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of solar energy. And I have it on my house. Typically, what is the, if you buy a house with a solar system on it and without it, how much are you adding from point of view of you're paying no electricity or you're only paying maybe 10% of your normal electrical costs?
Right.
How much value is that to the capital cost of the house?
Yeah, I don't have experience on that, so I am not sure. But again, this is something that when you talk to some of the real estate brokers, who have a lot of people with those kind of properties, they might be able to give you a better idea.
Yeah. No, I'm not looking at it from point of view of selling. I'm looking at it from point of view of encouraging people to put solar on the house so they can also benefit from the capital appreciation.
Right. I know, but I think that this from just my general knowledge, what I see is that, they first of all, depending on which company you hire for doing the solar, like, in your New York Durham area, you have more experience on putting in solar, right, Adel? Adel?
Yeah, well, and we have solar, number of Zoroastrians that now have it.
Right.
Farooq Patel has it, Vispikanga has it, we have it, my daughter has it, Darimir has it.
Right.
And, the payback is typically about 6 years. But I think it's even more valuable because I believe definitely it appreciates the value of the house. So without
Right.
taking that into consideration, the payback is 6 years, and every single Zoroastrian should be thinking of putting it on, provided they don't, they are in the right position and they don't have too many trees around them or whatever.
Right. That brings up the good point, that not only you are thinking about, money, profits and all that, but, as a Zoroastrians, we are supposed to follow a ethical lifestyle, right? And so do not do anything that is unethical, in your business investments and operation. So one time what happened is that before I ever bought any home, I was living in an apartment. And when I started thinking about buying a home, one of the real estate guys, showed me this property where a lot of old people were living, with old time rents. But he advised me, that, well, what you can do, you can buy this property. It was like an apartment complex, and then, you can raise the rents, or throw out the tenants, And of course, I said that's not something that I would be very happy to do. And I declined, to do that, throwing out old people, just to raise the rents and all that. But that's what I would say, and the people who are known as realtors, they have to follow a certain ethical code, and if you, as a realtor, the person does not follow that, then they can be disciplined and they might even lose their real estate license, type of thing. So that's why I always say, go to a reputable realtor, not a run-of-the-mill real estate salesperson, and make sure you get that proper advice. And also in getting funding, you should kind of check around the different sources of funding, banks or private agency, who is giving you a better deal, just like everything else, do your personal research in order to get the best deal.
So Monica, I have a question.
Yes.
A lot of it seems that a lot of people have been discouraged buying and renting properties lately due to the COVID mandates, that people, don't necessarily have to pay their mortgages or their rents on time. Do you think that that's been kind of overblown in the media and people should be discouraged to buy as a result of that? What's your opinions or experiences on that?
Yeah, my little experience or knowledge about, following these things in the news is that there are also these government organizations that have these kind of rules, to help the tenant, to make the rents. They also help the landlords, and so it's not always cut and dry. But these rules are there. Different states or different counties, they have certain rules that will try to help the situation, but they try to help both the tenant and the landlord, and they might help the tenant because they are not able to make a rent, they have to also apply for that, to the government, and if their application is approved, then that can help them. But it's not a very disaster type of situation as for the landlords.
And then Monica, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Monica,
Right.
So how do you go about negotiating a home price, especially in a market like this? Would you still say it's good to be very aggressive and, you know, give a, you know, a little bit of a lower first offer? Or have you seen that generally housing in California, it's so hot that you just need to put in the offer that they're asking for if it's at a fair price and go from there?
Yeah, that is, of course, depends on situation per case by case basis. You know, you have, if it's a very hot market, you know, then you are obviously competing with other buyers as a purchaser in order to get the, you know, the property. And what you can do, you know, like what I have done in the past, you know, is have a good, as a real estate person, I would have a good relationship with the seller, you know, and a good relationship, of course, with the buyer. And, you know, try to convince the seller that this particular buyer or applicant for buying, you know, is a young family, you know, and, you know, kind of uh, get them a little bit more attracted towards helping some young family, you know, to move into the house. If it is the same price, you know, they are getting from others, or maybe a little bit more. But other than that, and that is also brings up the question, because one of my clients, you know, they when I told them that, look, right now this is a competitive market, and we have to you know use this particular price, you know, to offer to the seller. And at first time, you know, they did not agree on that. They said, no, I don't want to. I only want to buy at this price, you know. And so then initially he lost the bid, you know. But then, you know, uh, because of my good relation with the broker, and, you know, that guy let me know that somehow, for some reason, the original guy who was going to buy it and who won the bidding has decided not to buy it, you know, and he found something else that he's going to buy. So right away, he told me about that. I went back to my client and told them that, look, this is a situation, we better take the price that the you know, the seller is willing to sell for. And so then they did it, and luckily we were able to save the transaction. He was able to get a good house, and this was in the Irvine area, you know, which is a very exclusive type area in Southern California.
Excellent. Thank you, Monica.
Fred, home buying is a very emotional thing, and sometimes there's no rationale. If someone likes something in your house, you get the money. I resold a house in Naperville, and we had a little lake at the back, a pond. And this couple came from California, and it was on the market, and you know, we were not getting too many hits. And this particular couple came in. The wife stood at the kitchen window, saw the lake behind, and says, "Honey, this is the house for us." She hadn't even gone upstairs or seen the house. Okay, and the sale, we got the full price. So it's very emotional and sometimes irrational.
Right. And that also brings up the point of you know, being aware when you become emotional about buying a house. You know, like sometimes, you know, in the advertisements and all that, you will say, oh, house on the top of a hill, you know, and looks beautiful, you know, get a beautiful view of the surroundings and all that. But then you have to be aware where you are buying that house and what is the condition, you know, because a lot of time, because of the heavy rains and all that, that cliff on which you have the house might start slipping, you know, and then you will end up with major repairs, you know, to try to keep it, or maybe you may not even be able to save it, you know. Many houses in the, for example, in Santa Monica area, you know, the beach area that were on the top of a hill, actually, you know, ended up sliding down the hill, you know, because of the heavy rains and because of the condition of the soil, you know, on which, because if it is, the house is a foundation is on a solid rock type foundation, you know, then it is safer. But if it is on a clay, you know, that kind of a foundation soil, it will just move, you know. And so that's a problem. And the other thing is, like, if you are buying a house in a forest area, as you know, especially with the climate change, you know, that there are a lot of forest fires, you know. And do you want to take the risk, you know, of living in a forest fire area? And nowadays that area is expanding. People like to live, you know, in a nice forest looking, you know, with trees and all that kind of thing. But you have to think of all these things before you make a decision where to buy. Location is very important. Besides crime, And besides other area or other factors, you should think about the nature, natural disasters and all that.
Manik, a question on real estate agent commissions. How flexible are they?
Yeah, good question. When I was doing it, they had, our company was saying, we have to stay, we only allow, the certain amount of commission, like 6% or 8% or what have you. But I have seen that, people do, who are not connected with a certain broker or what have you, they will have different levels, lower levels of commissions, Some of them are, their services are relatively limited, and so they will allow their real estate salesperson to, use a lower commission rate, type of thing. Now, I know my own client, he was telling me, that, he wanted me to give me a lower commission rate, so from him. But I said, look, my broker doesn't allow me to do that, so it depends, But nowadays, especially a lot of people are doing lower commission, offering lower commission type thing, agreements. So you have to check around again, and see what are the pros and cons, what kind of services they apply, what is their experience level and reputation, all those things you have to consider.
All right, any other questions?
Yes, hi Manik. Hi everyone, this is Shabnam.
Oh, hi, Sabnam.
Hi, nice meeting you guys. So I'm an agent, and also we are looking for our our residents here in LA, Los Angeles. So it's been a little, hard, all the offers being bidden and all these. But Manik, I wanted to ask your opinion. Do you see a change in the buyer-seller cycle is coming up anytime soon? Do you think foreclosures are coming to market like this year? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. This is something, that about timing, of buying a property, because this is, you have to also look at the history of real estate, right? You have this boom and bust. There is, when the time is higher prices and all that, people jump into it, just like in the stock market, when the stock market is, Wall Street is doing good, a lot of people, invest almost blindly sometimes, oh, okay, this my friend, or you go to some, especially like Indians, we go to a party and all these people are talking, about, oh, I made so much money and, I bought it and I sold it at big price and this and that. And sometimes people can get influence. Sometimes your wife or husband will convince you, come on, let's buy, let's get this opportunity. Even in this one show, called King of Queens, that's a comedy type show, that's what the husband and wife had, this kind of transaction, jumped into the stock market when it was booming. Yes. And they lost money, so house prices also can happen. And so what you have to do is just have some observation as to, okay, what is the current situation? Right now, people are buying, houses with cash and there is a lot of speculation. There are these companies that are saying, you can sell, you can give the contract to us, or we will buy your house as is. You don't have to do anything and all that, so you just have to be careful about how you, sell and what kind of transaction offers you take and all those kind of things. I would say that right now, there is a certain amount of speculation, happening. A lot of properties are being bought and all that. And what you have to say is, okay, something can happen, because of the pandemic. There are some factors, that are happening. One thing is happening is that a lot of people are now able to do their jobs from their home, or businesses from home using the internet, connections and all that kind of thing. So things are, there's a plus and minus, people, companies are able to, get by with people working from home. So then they don't have to rent office space, for their business and all that. On the other hand, a lot of people, they are losing workers, and many of these businesses are going down because they don't have people to do the job and all that. So it is a little fluid situation, but any emergency can happen. For example, right now you have this war breaking out in the Ukraine, okay? And Russia is involved, and America is involved because of its NATO, alliances and all that. And we don't know what can be the impact on our economy. They say that Russia can create a problem about oil supplies, and so the oil prices can increase, so the people who are buying houses or selling houses, they may end up saying, oh boy, my uh, cost of living has tremendously gone up and I cannot afford to pay a mortgage, or stuff like that.
Yes.
So, yeah, so you just have to be aware of that, unless you really want to have a house right away, I would advise, that kind of watch the situation stabilize, with the pandemic and all that, before you make the final decision. But you can always look around, search the properties that are available, and sometimes there may be a good deal that you can get.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, great questions, everyone. I think we have time for about one more question. Anyone have any last questions or last thoughts?
Yeah, any comment is also can be helpful for all of us.
Manik, Rustam engineer again.
Yes.
I'm sitting in Austin at my son's house, and I know that he's looking for a bigger house. And at the same time, he's planning to keep his current house and rent it out.
Right.
Now, his latest comment about searching for a house is that there's hardly anything available right now. And whatever little is available is not only overpriced, but not good enough for the price that you're paying. So I just heard you, this is just a comment, I just heard your comment to hold on and wait till the situation stabilizes, especially with the war and the oil implications, price. Is there anything else he should wait? Should I advise him? What would you advise your son at this time?
Well, I would just advise him to, keep searching, on the internet. Nowadays, there are a lot of resources, that you can see what are the prices being offered and available and all that kind of thing. And if he finds a good deal, then I would say go ahead. But otherwise, I would say that, kind of wait for the market situation and the world global situation to stabilize a little bit before making that kind of final decision. That would be my advice.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Manik Uncle, for a wonderful presentation. I'll go ahead and consolidate these recordings, and I'll follow up with the people also. I know, Manik Uncle, a lot of people wanted to see the recording, so I'll send it to them also and see what was included in there, and we'll follow up on that.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending and listening to my humble presentation with my limited experience. And thank you, Faridun and Rustam ji, for organizing this, and of course Adel Davar for overseeing all this organization of the webinar. And wish you all a nice day, nice weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Manik Uncle.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.